So, tension, is it good? Is it bad? Do you need it? Do you not need it? The answer is yes, because some tension is good, some tension is bad. But whenever this topic pops up, right, you see a lot of people, they don't actually dive into the substance of the topic. Maybe they don't know how to dive into the substance of the topic, or they just rather keep the conversation surface level and, try and relegate information into their class. Whatever. But then when you just have like surface level slop content about, tension, is it good, is it bad? A lot of people are left wondering, right? And then you're just out in the ether and nothing is actually accomplished with the discussion other than you just generating views, likes, what have you. So we'll actually dive into it very briefly here. Tension. What tension is good? So obviously we need tension within our grip system, right? So good support hand tension to actually help manage the recoil. Check out my grip video for a little more of a deep dive into grip stuff. We want tension in the firing hand, but not too much, because if we have too much tension, we're going to wind up impacting what we can actually do with our trigger finger. You wind up with trigger freeze, jerking, all that sort of stuff. So little tension is good, too much tension is bad. Grip video is a separate issue. Forearm tension. We need some forearm tension to actually dive into the grip stuff, right? Is doing this, however you're doing it, is going to impart some sort of tension into the forearms, right? Just kind of a natural event right there. All right. The biggest one though is shoulder tension. Do you need shoulder tension? Some people say no. Some people say yes. Some people say some. So when we're talking about shoulder tension, you actually have to look at the muscle groups that are in the shoulders, right? So traps and lats are pretty much the ones that we're actually talking about. Traps, I don't want any sort of tension in them, but I do want them positioned in such a way to where they're helping direct the recoil into the lats, which are tensed, right? And the lats being back here, how we're accomplishing that is, and there's several different ways to do this. How I like to do it is pushing the shoulders forward, but simultaneously down. So think of it kind of in a rolling motion. Like if you're shrugging up, down, and then forward, to actually accomplish engaging the lats while removing tension from the traps, but also positioning the gun out here in such a way to where it's positioned to drive recoil through the traps into the lats better than if it's super low or too high, right? If you're too turtled or too upright. So kind of a balance between the two to actually get that recoil driving into the lat system, which is necessary for kind of a higher level recoil management system and structure that's going to be a far more passive system than active system, where you're relying heavily on support hand pressure to actually manage the recoil rather than arms, shoulders, stance, all of that sort of stuff. So in regards to why we don't want trap tension, traps, right? It winds up kind of imparting and locking your arms too much to where kind of the refined input that you need on transitions when you're shooting super aggressive winds up getting a little choppy for most people. So removing the tension up here in the traps and then into the neck is super crucial, at least for me in my style of shooting, to where I'm not getting those kind of jarring transitions or super bouncy transitions, and I'm able to keep everything up here kind of loose, but still, like I said, directing into the lat system. As far as other tension goes, like biceps, triceps, all that sort of stuff, I'm getting some, but that's simply a byproduct of my grip style. Again, check out the video a couple back on that if you want more details. So some tension is arising from kind of the pushing and the contortion that's going on there. Some grip styles won't have that tension nearly as much. They'll have various levels. You'll have to go actually dive into grip videos on various grip styles to really get info on that. But what about tension in other spots? Chest, core, legs. Legs is going to be a separate thing regarding stance and all of that sort of stuff. That is a separate video I'll do at some point. Chest tension, again, kind of going to be a byproduct of what your upper body structure is doing. If you're going with more of a push-pull grip style, or mine where it's kind of a little push grip style, then you're going to naturally get some chest tension going on, right? Because you're pushing into the gun in some capacity, and that's going to activate this. As far as core tension goes, using your core is a very critical component of shooting. You're transitioning on your hips, right, to maintain this upper body structure, and the core is going to be active in that role, right? So there's going to be tension in there. How much tension is going to vary on what you're actually doing. With that core tension utilized in transitions and rotating on the hips to transition, especially on wide transitions, that's a deeper dive, separate topic. Maybe at some point I'll get into that. But that's kind of the premise of maintaining all of this upper body structure, because we don't want to be shifting like this on transitions, because that's just compromising all of the structure up here. Because if I'm over here shooting and over here shooting, I'm getting different angles of input into the system, and that's going to change how the gun's behaving during recoil. Same thing with rifle, right? If we're over here shooting, then we're over here shooting, it's going to shift what's going on with the upper body and how the gun's actually behaving, because of the levels of input we're actually able to put into the gun, as well as the angle of that recoil coming into our body. I think that covers most of it in a fairly glossed over form, better than nothing at all. If there's any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll try and get to most of them. Maybe do another video answering a few of those questions in more detail if need be. Have a good one, guys.